You're listening to the Living Inside Out podcast, and I'm your host, Toks Aruture. This is episode 83. Welcome to the Living Inside Out podcast, where we believe in the power of storytelling. Episode 83 is Trailblazing Women, Stories of Courage and Triumph. Welcome to 83. This is how we're going to end up at 100. Can you believe that? To think that at the start of this whole thing, I didn't even think I would go past episode 6, and here we are at 100. I've got to say thank you to you for that, because there is absolutely no way I would have continued recording if I didn't hear your wonderful feedbacks and your comments and how it's helped, and the times where I took unauthorized breaks and I'd meet you in public or get an email or a message or whatever saying, when is the next episode coming back? All of those just served one purpose. It helped to keep me going and helped to just keep me really reading the book of life, watching what life was serving me so that I could come back and tell you what I've learned. And of course, hearing your own stories as well, and hearing your life experiences and your own lessons warms my heart when someone says to me they never used to journal and they now do, or they are doing something differently or being blessed because of the podcast. So I thank you. Thank you for coming back again and again and again and again to listen. Well, today I'm going to be chatting with two amazing ladies, and I can't wait for you to hear their stories. Sometimes when it comes to business, oftentimes, actually not sometimes, we want to sugarcoat and make our lives seem like we were near unicorns, Oh, I started something and then this happened and that happened and bam, and here I am. Well, the journey of entrepreneurship is very different from the ones that are celebrated, that we read about and hear about all the time. And so today we're going to hear some real life stories. Let's go.
I am so excited to have two wonderful, not one, but two wonderful ladies on the Living Inside Out podcast today. I'm going to abbreviate their bios because they are go-getters and they have a lot. They've done a lot. They're doing a lot. So if I were to read their entire bios, if I were to read you guys' entire bios, we'll be here all day. So I'm gonna abbreviate, but we'll get to know you more as we chat. So Ginny.
Wind. Can you hear the wind?
No, I don't.
Oh, good.
No.
Okay, beautiful.
I can see your hair flapping a little bit, which is nice.
Yes.
So
I'm trying to be Beyonce.
Oh, well, you are. You don't need to try.
Well, just a little bit of Beyonce today on your show. Okay, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. So Ginny is the one that's outdoors, and she is sunning it in Colorado. She's a wife, mom of two beautiful girls. Why did I say girls? Have you got daughters?
I have a daughter and a son. Amanda has two daughters, though.
You have two daughters. But you I don't think either of you said in your bios what gender your children were. I always lean to girls because I have 4 boys, and I just wonder what my life would look like if I had at least one girl to go in. So I've always daughters.
Ooh, so it's a lot of drama. It's a lot of drama, Tokes.
I can imagine. All right, I'm going to start that again. Ginny is a wife, mom to 2 beautiful kids, co-host on the podcast Soul Rising. It's Soul or Soul?
Soul. Yeah, Soul Rising.
I figured. And the founder and owner of the Flipping Phoenix Furniture Rehab Company. Her passion for soul searching, healing, and heart connection with other human souls is what sets her spirit on fire in this beautiful chapter of life, with adventures spanning from chasing dreams in Hollywood in her 20s. We cannot wait to hear that one. To struggling with addiction, to 18 years of a sales career in the corporate world, and choosing to leave it. She believes that no matter the differences we may have with one another, we have far more in common, and she's determined to find that common ground with everyone that she can. Welcome, Ginny.
Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be here.
So honored to have you on. And Amanda. Amanda is a native New Yorker turned Coloradan, blends street smarts with tree hugging for a pragmatic yet soulful approach to love and losing. She's no stranger to either. Co-founder of the 501c3 nonprofit organization Castle Rock Clubhouse, a recovery clubhouse that serves as a meeting place for various 12-step programs. Amanda is passionate about sobriety, meditation, and spirituality. Through her commitment to climate action, she holds the spirit of loving kindness, perseverance, can't read, and compassionate service in high regard. A lover of horses, drumming, running, vegan eating, and dancing, she also enjoys singing with abandon to rock music, to loud rock music, not just rock music. And Amanda is also an author as well, and we're going to get to talk a lot about her book. And she also lives in Castle Rock, Colorado with her family and Pop Dolly. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure.
It's actually I've had 3 guests, but they came as one. It was a family, mom and 2 daughters, and they're on Instagram together, Celia Tokes. And I've had one guest with a co-host. My best friend co-hosted with me, but I've never actually had 2 guests, especially 2 guests who also run a podcast as well. So cool. I'm really honored. You're breaking ground here.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Love it. We're glad we can do that with you. You're breaking ground.
Oh, thank you so much. And we were talking before the recording started about the weather in Colorado, and I feel like I belong there. You know, looking at Amanda in her room, and I'm looking at Ginny, and I'm just like, it feels like I belong there. What's life in Colorado like these days with mom, wife, kids, everything, writing? I'll start with Amanda. What's going on in your life these days, and what's life like?
It's very busy. Very, very busy. I am trying to stay grounded, and Colorado is probably the best place for that. There's so much nature. It's just so earthy. And I think I might say it in my book, I feel closer to my soul here in Colorado versus New York. It's a little slower where the development is booming. So the road's getting busier. There are definitely more people here. But when I go back to New York and I spent a couple of weeks there and I come back here, I'm like, oh yeah, I could definitely feel the difference. It is still much calmer, the energy of the mountains. There's just something about the beauty of Colorado that is helping me to stay a little bit more grounded with my book coming out. My book is out, not coming out. I'm used to saying coming out. My book is out. It is out, and it's amazing.
Out. It's in the world. And so a lot of change. I'm going through a lot of change. I'm trying to manage that by being flexible. Now it's the summertime. My kids are home from school. So that adds another element of trying to manage my time. And I can tend to be a very organized person. Ginny knows, we always laugh. Ginny and I have a very interesting, I just said before, we're kind of like the odd couple. You know,
Ginny's totally the odd couple.
Oh,
and it's perfect.
But it's great, and it really works. And it's really kind of cool that I'm being challenged right now to slow down more, to just enjoy. Like I'm trying to enjoy the whole process and not be so concerned about getting it all done that I'm not present, or I'm losing, you know, this whole experience. I don't want to lose the experience. I want to hold on to it.
Love that. How old are the children?
9 and 11. I have 2 girls.
Oh, no.
They're amazing. They are amazing little girls. We have a lot of music going on in our house. My daughter's a lead singer and a rhythm guitarist of a little kid rock band.
Oh, wow.
It's so much fun.
So awesome. And then my little one, she dances and she plays the flute. And like you said in my bio, I play the drums. My husband plays the guitar. So pretty soon here, we're going to create a little family band and start making some music.
Absolutely. I can see that happening already. You guys need to start thinking of names if you haven't, but that sounds amazing. Sounds really busy, but also quite fun. And I know what you mean about when you leave a fast-paced city to go live somewhere quieter. And there is just more room, isn't there, to feel yourself, to hear yourself, and to be intentional about your intentions are always there, but it's real when you're in a slower paced city. Like you can actually put it to practice.
Yes. And if I find myself getting swept away by the busyness, I could just go sit where Ginny is in my yard and
I just can reconnect. I could just get quiet. I could listen to the birds chirp, right? And that is where I feel the most at peace and most when I'm one with nature. And then it just kind of slows me down, puts everything back in perspective. I realize what's important. I remember what's important. And then I can let go a little easier when I feel the safety of being, belonging to something bigger than me.
Excellent. That's amazing. Beautiful. And Ginny, you're in Colorado as well. Do you guys live next to each other, or rather close?
We live very close, like 10 minutes apart.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so
Oh,
cool.
it is.
So what is it like with you? How busy are you? What are you up to this?
It feels very, as Amanda just explained, like very busy right now. But in a good way. I'm experiencing just this completely new chapter of life because I've, again, been in a sales job, for that particular field for 18 years. I just resigned from my job about 2.5 months ago to go in on restoring furniture. Oddly enough, when I saw what you do, I was like, whoa. I know, I was so excited. Doing it full time. It's this passion I didn't even know that I had. And there's a big changing season, for the first time ever in my children's lives. My husband's a teacher. He's a special education teacher. So the kids always have the summer off with him, and I don't. I'm still always leaving at, 6 a.m. to head to the city to go work. And it's the first time in their lives that I'm home. I'm in the garage, like painting and working on furniture. So it's been busy, but it's a good busy, because everything in me has shifted. My cadence, my tone, and how I'm functioning in life. I'm not under this insane amount of commuting stress every moment, and working however many hours a day to come home and be exhausted. I feel like, I was telling someone the other day, it feels like that feeling when you were in school as a kid and you got the summer off, like you were going to be home for the summer. It's the first time I've had that as an adult, and it's been fantastic. It's also a little scary, right? I literally took a giant leap, and it's an interesting thing to be like, all right, well, this is where we need to get things moving and going, because we still have to, you're not having that consistent paycheck that you were accustomed to. But at the same time, this doesn't feel like work to me. So even if I'm out there, restoring furniture for 100 hours a week, it doesn't feel that way. Which I haven't been quite there yet, but right.
Yep,
I'm like,
yep.
But it's an incredible feeling. It's a different side of myself. I think I'm getting to know parts of myself again, as we were talking about, because I'm slowing down. Like I literally feel like my neurological system even is slowing down. The hormones in my body, I think, are, like the stress hormones, I don't think I have. I can feel it being different. I've lost weight like randomly because I genuinely believe it's because my stress levels that I've been accustomed to being normal, right? We call it normal.
Yeah.
I know it's like, no, it's normal to like work yourself to death and not have time to enjoy life. That's what we do. So there has been this sense of excitement. It is very busy, a little bit of butterflies in my stomach, because I'm like, all right, we got to make this thing work now, but also just adventure. Like I have this sense of like, no, we're living right now. Like I am living. I feel like I'm living.
And you're not just existing any longer.
That's right. Yeah. I don't feel like that. I feel like there's purpose in what I'm doing, in the day, and that I'm feeling what I'm doing. I'm not just like going through that robotic, crazy autopilot that we get into of like, nope, wake up at 5:30, get up, do this, try to get a walk in. All right, let's go. Now we're in traffic. Now we're at work. Now we're never answering all the emails that come in effectively. And it's just the same cadence, right, of this stress level. So I feel like that I'm, for the first time as an adult, experiencing not having that. And it is amazing. Again, busy, but the best kind of busy I could have ever imagined. And I'm getting to work more so, on the podcast with Amanda, and just there's parts of my creative self that I don't think have been allowed to be present, for a while as a responsible adult. So those are the main things. My kids are out for school. I have a son and a daughter. My daughter is 10 going on 11 and my son is 8. So it is
perfect ages.
And they're close to Amanda's kids, and actually they play music together sometimes. My daughter,
Sorry, carry on.
no, I was gonna say my daughter plays piano and sings too. So she and Shelby, like every now and again, they connect, and it's so cool to
And they're
watch.
all you guys are all musical, aren't you? Like, it seems like a thing, because with Amanda's family and then your girls and then your little secret, which I'm not going to reveal at this point until much later on. I'm like, there's music going on, a lot of music going on here. Well, I want to pick up on something you mentioned. You said the word purpose, and often I wonder, and I don't know if this is how either of you feel, that we were created to live a certain way, but then the way the world functions today and the way society functions has kind of knocked us off that path completely, because you waking up and getting satisfaction from your work to the point where it doesn't feel like work, I think that's not supposed to be an unusual thing. I think that's how we're designed to live, isn't it? But then we get into the rat race of big city living and working nonstop and being in traffic and rushing home and having targets at work and then rushing back to work again and doing it all again nonstop. And then you compare that life to the life you're living now. I always say that there are other currencies besides cash, because when I started my business, when I started the business in the UK, I started after I lost everything in the United, because I was in Georgia for a while. So I lost everything in there, and we came it was during the 2008 recession. And so came back here, and I call that season of my life the perfect storm, because everything that could go wrong went wrong. And it was scary, but I couldn't just sit down and wait for the storm to be over. I had to do something. So I researched the UK baby and children's goods market and decided they had absolutely nothing like what we had in the US. And then I decided to start a new company, but I had zilch. I actually started with $75. I had nothing at all.
Wow.
Very often.
I love that.
Very
Awesome.
often I had to remind myself and tell myself that there were other currencies besides cash, because the one roadblock I kept hitting was funding. I kept everything I wanted to do required money. But then, when you have something so pressing, like I knew I was supposed to be doing this, and I thought, if I'm supposed to be doing this, then there must be a way for me to do it. Maybe I need to take my eyes off what I think is the answer, and then look inside myself and see, who knows, what I'll find. So I began to, and I feel like I'm totally going off topic here because I didn't plan to talk about this.
No, it's perfect though. It's perfect because
that's totally Ginny's way. Ginny's like, let's just go in and just see where it goes.
Where it goes. But also and just really quick, Amanda's heard me say a million times, I talk about our energy being currency. That's why I'm like smiling and nodding, because I talk about energetic currency all the time. So please continue.
Oh, wow. So that's the thing. So I began to, I remember when one of my first obstacles was the fact that manufacturers and, distributors, I should say, UK companies did not want to supply furniture to me, because they wanted me to either have a physical location or invest in a large amount of stock, and I couldn't do either because I didn't have the funds. And I began to negotiate with them, and then I went to the EU. It wasn't the EU, we were in the EU at the time, but I went to the European continent, and I just started looking at manufacturers there and so on. And I discovered that my ability to negotiate was a currency, which often we don't put stock on things like that. And I wanted to have a website built, and I couldn't afford the website builder. Really lovely guy said, because you're my friend's friend, I'm only going to charge you £1,000. I didn't even have £100. And so I just said to him, oh, don't worry, I'll think about it and I'll let you know. And I went home and I thought, I'd had some web designers in the past, and I thought every web designer I've worked with had one thing in common. They were not born with the ability to build a website. They had to learn, and so can I. And so I just went on Google and typed in how to build a website. And that was back in the day when website building was rocket science. Now you just Shopify or wherever, buy a theme and it's done. You can have a website in 15 minutes. But I learned all of the different components, and I realized learning was a currency. So because I couldn't pay for it, but I could learn how to do it. And that was a currency in itself. And so when I think I felt led to say that because when you talked about the uncertainty of leaving, you've left a paying job and now you're doing entrepreneurship is risk, you don't start off earning big amounts of money from the beginning. And a lot of times many entrepreneurs never actually make big amounts of money, but then they get paid in other ways as well. And the freedom that you're enjoying now is the sort of freedom that people wait till retirement age to go to experience, having worked hard like crazy and busted their body up and they can barely walk and they're on, kinds of medication. And then finally they're like, okay, now I can sit outside. I can go into my garage and I can paint furniture for a living. Well, you're doing that now. So that was where I was heading with that.
And it's true though. You're hitting the nail on the head, and it's meant everything. There's something I think to be said for that. I don't know that I don't know that I'll ever make great money, but the freedom, like you were saying, I've had nieces and nephews graduate in the last 6 weeks. It's insane. I've traveled a bunch and it's been celebratory, right? It's been like nieces and nephews all graduating. We're all over the place. I had a really good friend pass away actually in Los Angeles, and I was able to be at his celebration of life and to sing for his service. I would have never been able to take that much time off. Exactly. I would have never been able to be at all of those things. There's no way that I could have done that in a 6-week period of time. And that in itself has made all of this worth it, because I was present at these my oldest niece got her PhD, first PhD in any of her lineage from all grandparents, all family, first one. And I got to watch it. Yes. And I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't have been able to if I was still in a position where I'm like, well, I only had so many vacation days and I've already taken vacation, and I wouldn't have been at all of those events. So that in itself has already that currency you're talking about. For me to get to experience that there's no price tag. There's no dollar amount. It's been amazing.
That's good. I'm happy for you. I really am. And I know it's going to it's just going to keep getting better.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So Amanda's an author. Amanda, you have written a book, Trust Yourself to Be All In. Okay. So start with, I love the title, because already the title is an affirmation and it's an instruction. And in many ways, it's a blessing, because I don't know if it's a female thing or not, because I know some people get upset when people say imposter syndrome is felt mostly by women. I don't know whether or not it's true, but I know that I do experience imposter syndrome as a woman. Mm-hmm. And I know that there are times that I gave more power to other people to make decisions for me because I don't trust myself to make it. So when you say trust yourself to be all in, and there was a little blurb I read about your book as well, which has escaped my mind for the moment, but tell us, why did you write the book and what is it about?
So I got very inspired during COVID. I had just gone through a long stretch of healing. My brother passed away in 2018 from a drug overdose, and it really... Thank you. Yes, it sent me on a crazy spiral. And what I wound up doing is pushing my husband away. I decided, I don't love you. I don't think I ever loved you. And that set us into marriage counseling. And it set me on this long, windy path of unraveling this story of generational dysfunction, which I've called the great myth. Is this story that everybody leaves me, everybody dies. I mean, everybody does die, but I'm going to get hurt. So I need to protect my heart. I was told by somebody, it's always better to love a little less.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Man.
And I discovered through individual counseling, couples counseling, 12-step recovery work I did around my marriage, hours and hours of meditation, being out in nature during COVID, being alone, right? Being alone, getting in tune, listening to something higher, connecting my higher self with my higher power, all that. And I started to understand that I had been playing out this false narrative had been playing out in my marriage. And actually, when I looked back at all my romantic relationships, even friendship relationships or any relationship, I was always kind of keeping everybody a little bit distant to protect myself, because the shoe's going to drop and then I'm going to be devastated. So through basically, so having those years of experience, those years of healing, doing all that work during COVID, one day I was running on my treadmill and I just got struck with this knowing. I heard, you're going to write a book. And I was like, what? It's like, where'd that come from? It's like, okay. I mean, I have an English major. I'm an English major, journalism minor. I have a social work degree, a master's in social work. I was sort of asking God, higher power, universe, whatever you want to call it. It's easy for me to call God. What do you want me to do with this? My kids are getting older. What kind of career do you want me? I always worked until I got pregnant and then I was a stay-at-home mom. It's like, okay, I'm going to be ready to jump into some sort of career. I am seeking that fulfillment. What should I do? And all of a sudden it just came together. You're going to write a book about this experience that you just had because it is so powerful and it is so healing that you must share this. Against my own consent. It was like, you're doing this whether you want to or not, and it's going to scare the crap out of you. And it's going to be really hard and it's going to be painful at times, but this is what you're being called to do. So I just decided to answer the call and I started the process of self-publishing. To back up a minute, what happened actually was, it wasn't just my healing. Now I need to show others how to heal. There was a much deeper, more profound message to that. It was, I understood that healing my own personal pain and other people in the world healing their pain, we have the power to heal collective pain, because I believe that what's going on inside echoes out into the world.
100%.
So I believe that we individually are responsible for the chaos in the world. Because if you believe in the law of attraction, if you believe in everything, all those spiritual principles, it speaks to the fact that everything's in shambles and a mess out there because we're a mess inside. So we're just manifesting whatever's going on inside, right? So through my experience and my healing, I felt maybe if I could help some other people heal, because I know other people have this same sort of false narrative, this generational dysfunctional message that you need to protect your heart and all that because you're going to get hurt. That's where the all in kind of comes from. That if I can help other people do that, then maybe if enough of our energy shifts collectively, then maybe we can start to make a difference out in the world. And I'm also very passionate about climate action. So that really underneath all of this, that was like the major thrust, because before I decided to write a book, I thought I was going to go into policymaking and work with legislators and make change laws to affect climate change. And so that was like the initial thought, okay, when this is all over, when this whole COVID experience is over, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to work in Denver, or I'm going to try to do something like that. And then it turned into, wait a minute. You can make all the laws you want. You could make all the legislation out there in the world. But if you're not changing people's hearts and minds,
That's so true.
As a collective consciousness around this stuff, nothing's ever going to change. You could provide the reusable plastic silverware. You could, take away the plastic bags. You could make everything solar. We could shut down all the coal factories. If people are going to find a way, they're going to find a way. And the division that was going on too with COVID, that played a huge part. It played a huge part. So that division is, you can have the coal factories, you could do all that kind of stuff. But if we are disconnected, our energy, again, is going to reverberate that negative energy out into the ethers, and we're going to stay suffering. We're going to stay in suffering.
That's so cool.
So it kind of all came together in this, in this idea.
Feel then that this generational dysfunction, or this myth, the great myth for you, do you feel, where did it start for you? Do you think it started from childhood, or did it start when you became an adult, dating? What was it?
I think it's been centuries old. I think it's ancestral pain. I think it's ancestral trauma and pain. I didn't notice it until after I had an experience, and I told my husband, I don't think I love you. And I was having a conversation with an old friend, a dear friend. And she said, you know what, Amanda? She goes, you've never really been as into the people that you've dated. They've always been more into you. And that was sort of the first little inkling. I was like, she's right. Like, I thought about my past relationships, and I said, so-and-so always cared so much more about me than I did about them. And then I was able to, go through all this counseling and meditation and writing and just getting really, truly honest with myself and say, you know what? Yes, I've never allowed myself to have a true partnership with another human being because I'm afraid of loss. So what was actually going on with me and my husband was, he is a 9/11 first responder. He retired from the FDNY after 25 years of service, and he has chronic respiratory disease. He has PTSD, which he's done a lot of different types of therapy around, and it's really miraculous. He's healed. It's kind of crazy. I talk about how that happened in my book too, but he's 12 years older than me. So there's a lot of these different factors. When Jeremy died, that's my brother. When Jeremy died, I consciously said, Jim, that's my husband, he's next.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
So unconsciously, I started grieving him and my marriage and everything around that. And it was just so painful. So to answer your question, I mean, where this all started, I mean, I think I was born with it. I think it's in my DNA. I think it's a cellular thing that we carry on from one generation to the next. And that's why it's so difficult and painful to break, because we're literally shifting the DNA inside. We're changing on a cellular level, and it's not an easy thing. And it's mirroring what's going on inside me, and a lot of us personally is mirroring what's going on out there. We're going through major shifts in society, right? Things are unacceptable. We're making big changes. So I think it started, I think that this was in me. I'm also a recovered alcoholic. And I think that pain was until I was 13 years old and I found alcohol to relieve that pain a little bit. I think the pain was there from the beginning. I also went through some sexual trauma when I was young, when I was about 5 years old and 7 years old. And I think that compounded this myth that I was kind of indirectly, like I was given indirect messages from family members to, protect my heart and all that. And then the traumas compounded that. I was like, you know what? They're right. And then when Jeremy died, it was like, yeah, they're really right. It made it true. It made it completely true.
I always feel, and it's kind of an idea that I haven't really explored extensively, but I believe that the thoughts that we have and the imaginations that we have and the fears, let's even just use fear alone. The fears we have is causes our mind to look for physical evidence that fear is real. Yes. And so even when you might be surrounded by evidence of the contrary, I mean, we're surrounded by evidence of everything, good and bad. And if your mind searches for a way to bring, I guess, to quell the dissonance within you, i.e. the fear you're experiencing on the inside is indicative of a real situation on the outside. You cannot have a fear for something and then the opposite happening outside and be at peace. And so your brain is constantly looking for a way to bring everything full circle and say, hey, what you feel on the inside is exactly what's happening on the outside. And then you're looking for components and and it puts it all together and you're like, yep, see, that's what happened.
Making the story true, making the story that we tell ourselves true.
That's it.
Because it's in our mind, it's what we think we feel at home with that fear, because we know it. So therefore we create it. We make the story true. I agree 100%.
Every time my husband gets sick, he gets the sniffles. And I'm like, oh, here we go. This is it. This is the end. I get take it. I'm also, as being an alcoholic, I tend to be a little extreme. So in my thinking, I can go from black and white, like 0 to 60, like super quick. So, the work that I've done taught me to reframe those messages that are.
I was literally about to ask you, what sort of strategies did you share in the book and has helped you? So carry on, please.
Yes, I reframe situations where it's like, okay, no, he's just, Jim was sick. This was a brutal winter in Colorado, brutal, snowed a lot. And I don't know if that contributed to his illness, but he was sick 4 times within 6 months, each one lasting 2 to 3 weeks, one of them a whole month. So then he gets put on prednisone and steroids and all that kind of stuff. So I was a little bit in it. I'd go in and out. I'd go into the fear, and then I'd go into the faith, and then I'd go into the fear and and when I say faith, what I mean is not that he's going to live forever or everything's going to be great all the time, because that's just not reality. That's just not life. Yeah. The faith is I'm going to be able to handle whatever is given to me. Whatever my soul path, I believe I've already chosen a soul path for certain lessons to learn, ever that presents, I'm going to be able to show up to those things confidently, intelligently, emotionally sound, mentally sound, that I'm going to be able to carry on through all of those, whatever situations, whether it's with my husband or other things that come up. in life, because life is life, right? We have the good times, we have the bad times, we have the joy, we have the pain, we have all that kind of stuff. So, the all in is not necessarily just all in with others. It's all in with yourself.
Well, yeah. Okay, got you.
So once I'm thinking of this, I'm not religious. I'm more spiritual. I take a little from here, a little from there. I call it like I knit this like spiritual tapestry, and I take what I need and I leave the rest from different, religions and ideas. And what's coming to me is Moses scripture. He said, the God said, I am who I am. Or Jesus said, I am who I am, whatever it was. I don't know very well, but that was a big defining moment for me when I was able to internalize what that meant. It means that I belong in this big universe that's going on out there. I have a place. I am important. I have value just from existing.
Yeah.
And in that, I find emotional security. So my fear is this getting too close, this emotional intimacy. And I can replace that with emotional security by trusting that I am not just valuable or good enough, but this unconditional self-love that I'm going to show up for myself always. I'm not going to self-abandon. And, to add in one little piece in a 12-step recovery program that I'm part of, they talk a lot about emotional abandonment. And so I had some of that experience throughout my life too. So I began to abandon myself.
Yeah.
I've learned through this process of, like I said, the meditation, the healing, the different, having the self-compassion for things and trying to practice being emotionally selfless and forgiveness is huge. Acceptance is huge. Trust, it's all about trusting that I'm not going to self-abandon when the going gets rough. I'm going to show up. And my therapist has said to me, you know what, Amanda, I know, you're going to be okay, because look at your track record. You have a 100% success rate of being okay. And
Good way of looking at it. That's true.
And if I could say, it's not just okay, I'm always better, right? Like you started talking about earlier, the strife, the adversity, the pain gives me an opportunity to not just be resilient or, rebuild, recreate myself. I've hit the floor 3 times in recovery, in pain, emotional breakdowns. I talk about them all in the book. And every single time I've gotten back up, I've been better. I've been wiser. I've been stronger. I've been more faithful. So I almost welcome the pain. I have a chapter called Embrace the Pain. And I'm trying to show people that this stuff, it's there to serve you. It's how you use it.
An opportunity.
Yeah, totally.
Talking about opportunity, I don't know how true it is, but I heard this apparently in the Chinese culture, or one of the Chinese languages, they don't have a word for failure. And the word for failure instead is opportunity. So when a man's house burns down, he says, hey, it's an opportunity for a new house. When someone loses their job, they go, hey, it's an opportunity for a new job. And so they tend to see opportunity in failure, as opposed to seeing the failure as coming to destroy them or to hurt them.
I love that.
We hold on so tightly to things, whatever that thing is. So I talk about the Buddhist principle of impermanence, right? Accepting that all things are eventually going to fall away. And we hold on so tight because of the fear of loss. Yeah. So what my book actually does is teach people to move forward, not even without the fear, within the fear. I don't believe in fearlessness. I'm sure there are people out there who have mastered that. I personally haven't.
I don't even know if that's possible, because
I don't think so, right?
The emotion that we were born with, that we're created to experience a full range of emotions. So
it's there to serve us. It's like, okay, that fear is an indicator. It's an indicator that something has to be done or not done. Just like anxiety, just like all this stuff that we just naturally have. Some of us more, some of us less.
As we evolve. Yeah, like that. Well, and it kept us alive, when we first started as a species, right? Fear was instinct. It kept us from the lion coming or whatever, the predator that was going to come eat us. There was a reason for it. And I've talked and listened to a lot of people talk about how our physical DNA hasn't shifted that much in all the years that humans have existed, but our minds, our brains, everything else has, but yet we have some of this old wiring
Yes.
that functioned and served a great purpose then, but now doesn't. And we don't realize, and we get this anxiety, and it's like, it's the same thing of like, oh gosh, I'm not going to be accepted in this environment. Like as it was, oh no, this lion might eat me for dinner.
You're absolutely,
You-
you're absolutely right. I did a series on fear on the Living Inside Out podcast, where I had taken, I want to say it actually happened in Colorado. I might be wrong. Read a story about a woman who was she'd gone into, she was a researcher, and she was in the woods somewhere, some forest somewhere, and she came face to face with a cougar, and it then details her reaction. It was on the fight or flight or freeze a reaction, but it details exactly what happened, what was going on chemically in her brain, explaining what happens when we're afraid. And the reason why I read it was because I was clearly going through a fearful season at that time. My episodes tend to reflect a lot of times where I'm at. And I was trying hard to understand and analyze fear so that I could, as much as possible, disarm it and not be saddled under it like I felt. So I thought, let's look at how, I believe that we're made up of spirit, soul, and body, and your body is really just an expression of what's going on within. So let's see what happens to fear with the body and see how it plays out in the mind. And it really was quite an interesting one. And just, the fight, the reason why the potential prey, which will be the woman, and the cougar would freeze, where you have the different stages. It was, the first one isn't actually flight or fight, it's freeze. And freezing is what happens to make sure that the scenario we're in, i.e., yes, I'm in danger, but I'm not yet dead, does not change to me becoming dead. So the lion or the cougar freezes because it doesn't want the prey to escape, to be startled and escape. And the human freezes because she doesn't want to cause the lion to move and come. So it's a way of trying to control and preserve the relative safe situation that they're in. And then the spell breaks at some point, and then the flight happens. And if the lion or whatever the animal catches the woman and gets a hold of her, which in this case happened, then the fight at some point happens as well. And there was one more, I can't remember what the fourth one was, but it was so interesting. I'm going to send you guys the article.
Please do.
Please.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. So Ginny, what's your take on fear? How do you deal with fear?
Oh my goodness. I think I'm learning lots of new tools to deal with fear. I have 6 years of sobriety. I am a recovering alcoholic as well. And I think that I think I've learned a whole new set of tools on dealing with fear. Being somebody who really quite a bit, I used to escape from it, I think, or just distract myself from it. And obviously alcohol was one way, but I think even just that sense of chaos, we can be just as addicted to chaos as we can to a substance. And I think from a young age, even before alcohol ever set foot in my body, I found a way to keep myself distracted in chaos. And we had a little bit of chaos going on generationally in our house, and both my parents went through quite a bit in their own life, their childhoods as well. But I think that I used to definitely know how to distract myself from it. I think in recovery, there's an incredible set of tools, in these 12-step programs that Amanda has mentioned. I'm familiar as well. And it gives you the opportunity to have a tool, to realize like, okay, well, the fear is not going to, take my breath. Like I'm not going to die from the fear, but really letting yourself start to understand that is like a whole other thing. And I catch myself even now, I have to really be aware of not jumping into chaos, because it's my hard wiring to do so, because I think it was my coping mechanism. I mean, in the biggest way. So now I try really hard to let myself recognize the opportunity, like you were talking about earlier. If I'm afraid of something, there's a reason. So I have to like slow myself down a little bit. And I mean, I explain these same things to my daughter, right? Like, are we afraid right now? Because, you know, are we really in danger, or is it something that we're, you know, what is it that we're afraid of? So I think now I'm able to take that opportunity to look at it and say, okay, well, what is this bringing up? Why are you afraid? And are you afraid of what's really happening right now? Or is this thing that you think you're afraid of actually stem back to that time you were 7? Or when your mom maybe wasn't able to come pick you up from school because she, you know, was like passed out, like those things. And for the first time, I think now I'm giving myself a real opportunity, because the alcohol is not there, right? In the last few years, those things that used to kind of filter that out, I can stop and be like, oh, this isn't actually about that. I don't think I did great on this project. This is actually about that feeling of unsafety, you know, that I had way back when, or the fear of not being taken care of, or the fear of not being worthy, you know, and then I can look at it and approach it in a different way and say, wow, you're getting an opportunity right now to heal something old. Wow. You know, that this fear comes up now. And as Amanda spoke, and as you've said too, I have such a strong belief that those of us that are here right now, waking up to some of these things, I do believe, like Amanda mentioned too, that it's a cellular thing. I believe that we carry generational, you know, not just our own, but that we carry generational strife and struggle and unhealed wounds. But that those of us that are here right now, I genuinely believe we all signed up, like Amanda said, to do this healing, not just for us right here, but that we have this opportunity to heal our lineage, you know, no matter where we come from, because we're all, you know, we've had people before us and there'll be people ahead of us, that we are able to do some of this healing, you know, as we're choosing to do it now. We're healing. I've told Amanda, there's a shaman that I listen to. She's amazing, from here in Colorado, and something I'd never heard anyone talk about, generational wounds and pain. And she was saying that anytime we take the opportunity to do the shadow work and heal the things we're most terrified of right now, when we choose to heal it, we don't just heal for us right now, we heal for 7 generations behind us and 7 generations ahead of us.
That's interesting.
Yeah, when we have the courage, you know, to just do that shadow work. So I am working really hard at looking at that fear as opportunity all the time, because it comes up 100 times a day.
Right.
And yeah, choosing to just see it as opportunity, like you talked about earlier. I would love to look up that that Chinese. It's so cool.
Or whatever it is they say. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Right. And I think sometimes for me, I'm trying now not to have a knee-jerk reaction to fear, because I find it's also learning to be constantly aware that my mind doesn't always know the difference between real and imagined fear. And so, because we respond the same way. The other day, I consciously imagined a very horrible situation. You know, I just kind of like the worst that could happen to me. And I felt my heart beat faster. And it was just an imagination. It wasn't real. I actually had that picture myself just to watch. And I could feel the way my heart skipped a beat should that happen. But it made me think, wonder how many times I have avoided taking great opportunities because of an imagined fear. And
that's huge.
It made me wonder what direction my life would have taken should I, if over the last however many years of my life, last few years, let's say, I was very aware that much of what I was afraid of was imagined. And I was responding to a picture that I painted myself, not one that was even real. And also I'm trying to deliberately keep my eye focused on the future that I believe God has for me, and let my inspiration come from that future as opposed to it coming from my circumstances around me. And it's hard, but I don't think it's impossible. I think it's something that we have to be intentional about every single day, you know, just literally being aware of that.
Yes, we have to be conscious. We have to be very conscious of these thoughts that just come in, right? Again, like without our consent.
Right.
Super powerful.
Yeah. And as you were speaking, Talks, I was thinking about like I love that we're having these conversations, that a lot of people around the world are waking up, like Ginny said, and having these conversations and seeking this healing and are becoming aware and trying to work through some of this stuff. Because, not only are we, charged with, healing ourselves and our lineage, like I said before, there's a reason why it's happening right now, because the earth is in peril, because there is a lot of scary stuff going on out there. So this is very purposeful. Like, I'm just so grateful to be having these conversations. And yeah, so much of it is in our heads. It's just conditioned. It's conditioned response from childhood. That's where I know mine comes from.
Right. And I also think society as well. I'm very mindful about the news. I don't know about you guys, but I don't.
Oh, yeah.
And what the US news is like, but the UK, oh my goodness, it's like, it's got to be negative.
Oh yeah, I don't even watch the news
anymore. We've got that down. The US has that.
Oh yeah, we got that on lock.
We've made an art form out of the most like horrific. Everything is.
I'll take it. Yeah, it's not as bad. It's not as bad, but I say the earth is better. I mean, things are going on out there that need to shift and change, and stuff like that. But yeah, they make it so much worse. It's all about money. Ginny and I talk about this a lot.
We talk about this a lot of it. It's all about money, because we can keep people. You can really. Anyone who's afraid at any time, when we're in that state of fight or flight, we're very malleable. We're very controllable. Right. Always. And when you have, which is amazing, right? If you think about that, like you just said, that thought, just the thought of what your own body responded to, that's such a power in thought. So if our thoughts can kind of be manipulated or swayed in a way, and you take one person, so that's you, and the power of that thought caused your physical heart to change its beat. Can you imagine what kind of power you have over a group of people, a mass of people?
And then what it does to your body, and then we internalize it, like you said, Doc, like the body, mind, spirit, soul, that whole thing, right? Like when we're in that fear, like Ginny's talking about, the stress and the cortisol and all that kind of stuff that kicks in, it can make us depressed. It can make us then seek the thing, the shoes, the drugs, the gambling, whatever's
going to fill the void.
Whatever's going to make us feel, and make us feel better. I'm reading a book right now. It's called Dopamine Nation. And it's all about how we're addicted to this dopamine. And, I'd like to bring to everybody listening, to everybody's consciousness, that a lot of this stuff that you're fearful of, that it's very purposeful. There is something going there. It's very purposeful to put us in these positions, to then need to seek these things to make us feel better.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, we have it inside of us, what each of us, and it's different for everyone, whatever our thing is, but we actually have it inside of us. And I think the three of us sitting here today, right? And across, like, there's a giant ocean between us. We're all sitting here with very similar thoughts.
Yeah. Collective consciousness that's going on, and talking about this and doing these shows and writing about it. And however we can speak it and get it out there and spread this message, it's making a big difference. That's the purpose. That's what drove this. That's the purpose.
Absolutely. And it's also because I think that these kinds of conversations can actually only be heard by people, or can be made or held by people who have turned the noise of the world down. Because you cannot keep on hearing all of the negativity, like you were saying about the news. I mean, my husband watches TV. I avoid it. I watch Netflix because I can pick and choose what I want to watch.
Right.
But regular television, the news is an absolute no-no for me, because it's so negative. And it just had on the BBC breaking news: Joe Biden trips and falls, and it was on the ticker tape. And we were like, well, people fall all the time.
Yeah, like, who cares?
What is this?
Can't we fill this slot with something a little bit more meaningful?
I know. Yeah, well, and it's the banner. It's all breaking news.
Yeah, everybody get scared.
Everyone, I know. Are you scared yet? Let's put another red banner.
Exactly. Let's not forget that the BBC is also red. You know what? It just occurred to me. Most news stations have red as part of their
CNN.
Fox News,
CNN is red. Fox is, and red
is Fox too, or does Fox have blue?
CNN is blue and Fox is red, and I think it speaks to the people who watch those.
Really?
Red is the
blue?
Republican color.
Oh, really?
Again, look at all that programming. There we go. It's like everyone.
Very insidious.
I was thinking it had to do with red being danger, because
could be too.
is also red. Okay, ITV isn't, but the BBC is red. So it might, who knows? You never know. But you know, it's funny how I remember reading Darren Hardy. So Darren Hardy used to be the editor of Success Magazine years ago, and he wrote a book, a really good book called The Compound Effect. And in there, he says, he talked about how when you're on the motorway, you know, the interstate, and you're driving and there's traffic, there's a buildup of traffic and the cars are moving ever so slowly. And then finally you realize that there was an accident further down. But guess what has happened? The accident has been cleared to the side of the road. It's on the hard shoulder. It's no longer on the road. I'm doing that way because, you know, we drive on the other side of the road.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're like, no, that's the middle lane. No,
Oh, Mom, that's why there was an accident, folks. On the wrong side.
Exactly. And then you get there and find actually the roads were clear. You know, you get there and it's nothing in front of anyone. But what was happening was people were slowing down to look to see what was on the other side. But then when there is a nice, beautiful sunset, no one slows down to look at it. And the whole reason is because we're wired. You were talking about the primitive brain earlier on and earlier, you know, running from wild animals and so on. We're wired to look out for danger as a protective mechanism. And I believe that the news companies, the media houses know this, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And
They've tapped into it.
Yeah,
Yes.
they tapped into it. And so we're actually primitively looking out for danger for ourselves. And that's why they can report a piece of news about a plane crash 25,000 times, and we will sit there and watch it
Watch it
25
Every
again.
single time. Yeah.
as though it's going to change. Like nothing
Yeah.
changed. They would read it for 5 minutes. They'll go to commercial or break. Then they'll come back and they'll do it again. And everyone is like, have you seen that? Wow, look at the way that fell and look at the way that happened. And so we have to be very intentional and responsible about our lives. And so like Amanda's book says, all in, not just for others, but for you. Part of all in, what that says to me is that I'm responsible for my life.
Yes.
I'm responsible, and part of loving myself is loving my environment, making sure that the environment I'm in is safe for me to thrive in, and not just, you know, allow anyone or any information or anything to spill into my space, because we absorb it whether we like it or not.
Right.
The interesting thing about that shift real quick is I wonder if we're living in a time right now where we're ready and able to shift away from that primitive brain of danger, because it doesn't really exist as much anymore. We are not fighting off the buffalo. Ginny and I talk about this in our very first podcast episode. What do we name him? Bob? Bob the buffalo.
No, Bob was the guy.
Bob is the guy. Yes,
The
Bob
buffalo's
is
telling
going to
him.
be eaten by the buffalo. So yes. So that danger does not exist the way it did then. So maybe we're going through biologically, physiologically, a shift. And how that shift happened is by doing this work of the healing that changes the feelings of safety, right? So the subtitle of my book, and I'm sorry I keep talking about it, is safe to love and let go. So it's about feeling safe so that we don't have to respond in the ways that you're talking about, talks with that book. Yeah, like just to feel I'm okay. It's okay. We are okay.
Yeah, everyone's okay. And the thing is, Amanda, you asked that question if now is the time. I believe 100% wholeheartedly it is the time. I think that's exactly why these things are happening. I think that there's an evolution inside of us, all of us, the human spirit that's connected, because whether we want to acknowledge, again, we have that false idea that we're all separate by all these things, by what we believe politically, by what our religion is, by what our sexual orientation is. We're all separate, because that also helps you to be more protective of, this is my thing, don't take it away. You know, this is, again, in that fear place. And I think that as a whole, as a collective, like the human soul is working towards evolving. I think we are trying to get past a point where we're like, okay, these tools, like I said, our DNA hasn't shifted much. So we're working with tools that were very useful, 10,000 years ago or whatever. They're not so much now. The only way they're useful now is for other people to use them against us. To make money. Money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they can divide us using that fear, using that, right? A divided house cannot stand.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw
Yeah.
that here in the UK during the Brexit
Mm.
season when the UK was voting to leave or remain in Europe, in the EU, and the opposition party was just literally running with that. You know, you leave Europe, you if you stay, all the immigrants are going to take your job, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen.
Mm.
You can't tell the full truth because now it's affected small businesses so badly, but they did not say that part. You see, they focused on what they knew people will hold on to, which was fear.
Mm-hmm.
The trigger.
Overrun. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what they did. But yeah, but no, these conversations, I'm so glad that your podcast, and I'm going to put the link to the podcast in the show notes so everyone can go and have a listen. There was something you said on your podcast. I picked it up from the Instagram that says, don't waste the pain, use it to make you better, make the world better. Can you speak on that? Maybe Ginny, well, both of you actually. We'll start with Ginny.
I think it was Amanda, right?
Or was it a I
I
don't
don't know.
No,
Yeah.
it's on your podcast Instagram handle.
I'm
Yeah.
the one that makes those. But yes, well, that was pulled. I pulled quotes
From the
through.
book, right?
No, that was from our podcast.
Right.
that
But
was
was it,
from-
did you refer to it in the book anywhere?
Yeah, I get the idea, not the actual "Don't Waste the Pain," because
Yeah.
that's actually I learned as a title of another book. A friend of mine said that to me a long time ago. She said, "Don't waste the pain," and so I originally had it in the book, and then I had to be very intentional about what is original and copyright, all that kind of stuff. So I took it out, but the concept is in there. The idea is in there. And yeah, so it's about how you use the pain, how you use that fear. How's it going to motivate you? I had a friend also after my brother died, and I said, I'm really afraid that I'm never going to be the same, or I'm never going to be good, or I'm never going to be creative, or I'm never going to, get back on my feet. And she said, well, it's up to you to decide. Is it going to bring you down, or is it going to make you better? Right. So like different things that people said to me, just that's sort of where that idea came from, that the pain's going to be there no matter what. People, like we're all going to feel it, like we talk about also on one of our shows. Like you can't outrun the pain, like it's or your shadow, or this healing that you're being called to do. So use it to serve you and use it to serve the world.
I absolutely agree. I've been trying. Well, I started a series on. I didn't name the series itself, but it was about growing through pain, because I found the last half of 2022 to be quite challenging for me, and I spent maybe the first 3 months of the challenge waiting for the pain to be over. I spent the next 3 months coming to terms with it probably is always going to be there, and therefore accept it, but don't see it as something you should try and get rid of. And so now the season I'm in is learning that pain actually squeezes creativity out of us.
Oh yeah.
And we become more creative, and we produce more, we produce good stuff when we're in pain. I've been using the analogy of a seed in the ground. In my church, we were talking about seeds and all of that. And it actually, it's so funny that I've got an old journal. It's not within reach, but I have an old journal from last year, which sometimes when I'm going through a rough patch, I would just grab any of my journals. I journal almost every day, so I have a whole stack of them. I would grab an old one and might open randomly. And this is where I'm so thankful that I usually only write positive things in there, because it then comes to speak back to me when I'm going through a rough patch.
Amazing.
Randomly, and I could see I was writing all about seeds. And now in my church, we're talking all about seeds. And the whole idea is remembering that when a seed is planted in the ground. So at the time I was saying that in an orange seed is everything that's required for it to become a tree. So when you're holding an orange seed, you're actually holding a tree. The only thing is it now needs to be planted in the ground and watered and nurtured, and then it grows. But even for it to grow, the most painful thing happens, which is the skin has to get ruptured. And I talked about spirit, soul, and body. The body is the outer part of us. The soul is the container for the mind, which comes in next. And your spirit is the part of you that's actually alive. And that's the part that's connected to God. So that even when people die, their spirits continue to live on. And the reason why we have a body is because your spirit needs a place to stay in while it's on earth, because the body has to interact with, it's the body that interacts with the physical world. And so thinking about that and comparing it to a seed, and I thought, hey, interesting, the seed has a skin, and that's like our body. But you see, the skin has to be ruptured and destroyed for the goodness to come out and for it to grow and become a tree. And then I went on, I sometimes go down the rabbit hole myself, and I went on and went to one of the children's science websites to learn about the different parts of a tree, the endosperm and the core of it, and what comes first and how it grows. And I started to form a theory in my head, which I'm not even going to bother going into today, but I'm going to put it on.
Why? I want to know the theory.
Well,
because I love it.
Well, the endosperm is the covering, it's the part that's right after the skin. It's the next part that you meet, and that actually contains all of the nutrition and water, which is why seeds never die. So you can have a seed that's completely dry and just sitting on the shelf for years even. It continues to remain alive, even though it's not growing. It continues to remain viable, I guess is the word, because it has a source of nutrition. Isn't that crazy?
That's
Yes.
crazy. And
Nature
I did not
is
know.
just blows my mind. And all of our answers are in nature, just like you're talking about.
Absolutely.
That's
And
amazing. Now I want to know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth checking out and just reading on it, and even just reading up on the concept of seeds and seeing what comes to you, seeing what you get out of it, because you might get a different understanding from what I'm getting. And so I thought it's interesting that the core of the seed is the actual part that grows. The second layer of the seed is the part that nourishes the core. And the skin is the part that protects everything. And so on the one hand, I was looking at skin in terms of our physical body that protects our insides. But on the other hand, I was also looking at skin in terms of self. So when I think about some of the goals I've had and I haven't achieved them, or the opportunities I've had and I hadn't taken them, I can see some situations where it was me not letting my skin rupture. For example, when I wanted to start my podcast, I dilly-dallied for months. And one of the things it was self-consciousness, I kept thinking, people are going to say, who does she think she is? What has she got to say? And that's me responding to those thoughts, was me stopping the skin from rupturing, because it's all about my external and how people perceive me. And that's what I was trying to protect. But you've got to be prepared to allow the pain of rupturing, allow the pain of betrayal, if betrayal comes with love, allow the pain of fear, of disappointment, of loss. All of those pains are external. They're not external, they're internal, but we're trying to keep ourselves safe, and we don't want it to come. And so we keep ourselves safe and we protect the skin. But if you're going to grow, you've got to let go and let the chips fall where they may, but you will grow. And it might be painful, but you will grow.
And that speaks to the trusting yourself of that you're going to be okay, that you can handle whatever is going to come up once you do allow yourself to break through that skin.
Exactly. My oldest son said something when he was young. I mean, he must have been about 10 or 9 at the time. And he says, Mommy, God wouldn't put us on earth if we couldn't handle being on earth. And there's also a scripture that says, where in the beginning of the Genesis, it says that God prepared a garden for the man to live in. So God actually made the Garden of Eden for man to live in, and he made it beautiful and filled it with trees and water and everything, and made it just perfect for him. So something you mentioned, Amanda, when you were talking about, you said, when you said that I am that I am, that you believe that the world is okay for you, or something like that, like it's okay, it's for you to exist in the world. And that's something that I'm definitely taking away, and I'm going to think about a bit more.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, this is a great conversation. You're
It's such a good
awesome.
I know.
I
I'm
love
like,
you. You are amazing.
we should talk all day.
We should. That we have Zoom, so we have no excuse. We definitely should.
I love
Yes.
it.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, once we get set up, if you would do us the pleasure of being on our show. We have not had guests yet because I
Right.
just one thing at a time. I'm a little
Right.
overwhelmed with all the technology and everything. But once we get it, seems simple enough. Once we get it figured out, we'd love to have you.
That would be awesome. I'd be honored. Thank you so much.
Yes.
But before we go, I want to pull out some crazy facts about Ginny. Please start talking. We need
Yes.
all of the details about this girl band situation. We want to hear all about it. I want to hear about Hollywood as well.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. I was 19. So I was, growing up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am a singer as well and have always written, never trained, anything like that. Just always been an outlet for me. And yeah, I was 19 and I had actually auditioned to play. It all kind of started here in Albuquerque. I had auditioned for the first company outside of the Broadway company of the show Rent. Yeah. So Jonathan Larson had already passed away, right? He's the one who wrote and did the show. And one of my good friends happened to know his family. His family lived in Albuquerque, which was insane, the odds of that. And she got permission to do a concert rendition of Rent in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Crazy, because it was the first company outside of that original Broadway group. I auditioned. I was like 18 at the time, 19. I got the part of Mimi. I played Mimi in Rent in that concert rendition of it. And that was amazing. Well, it was a great experience. But from that, I was able to get an agent and I ended up moving to Los Angeles initially, kind of chasing the acting side of things, I think more than like the music. Yeah, but I was working at a talent agency. I lived with 7 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. I lived with and I was like, hey, you guys are going to college? Cool. I'm leaving to go live with a bunch of people in Hollywood, California. So, but I was able to audition and do all these amazing things. In the midst of that, I had started a small theater production company with 3 other amazing women from all over. And we got to write and we did a small production, a theatrical production, and we were being creative and doing all those things. I was bartending there and doing all the things and being that age, turning 21, literally like, living on Sunset Boulevard. When people hear Hollywood, they're like, ooh, glitz and glam. I lived in the hood. Like Hollywood is not Hollywood. Hollywood is the hood. Like it was very, like people are always like, wow, Hollywood. Well, oh no, you don't know. It's crazy. Like, yeah. But I just decided, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I look back at that period of time, it's incredible because first off, it's incredible I survived being that age and in that scene, the amount of alcohol and drugs around, it's so normalized. It's such a part of everything. And I definitely, I turned 21 there. So it was like, I was drinking. I had a good drinking time going on. I was also surrounded around some of the absolute most amazing musicians, people who have gone on to do like incredible things, who were starting off early in their career there. And what an experience that was. We used to go out and play, music on the rooftop of our apartment building where you could see the Hollywood sign. And, I got to play music with these amazing musicians. I eventually ended up auditioning for a band called LA Fault Line. And these guys were all older, but these incredible musicians that had all grown up in like Lincoln Heights and East LA, and guys who grew up kind of hard, but had some of the most gifted people I've ever met in life. They were much older than me, but they needed a singer. And it was one of those things where the place I bartended at was like, hey, my friend's got this band. They need a singer. They did a lot of like old Latin jazz, Latin rock. They were very well known in that area and inspired a lot of people, but they would open up for bands like War and Tierra. And, there were times where I think LA Fault Line had even opened up like before Carlos Santana in one of these music festivals. So I was really honored to be able to start playing with these guys. And it was the first time I had the chance. I had never believed I could write. I didn't think I was a songwriter. I didn't even really think I was a singer because I wasn't trained, and I was around some of the best people like at that time. So to join this band with this guitar player who had, grown up there in East LA was like, hey, you write a lot of poetry. I've always written poetry since I was young. I just didn't believe that I could write songs. And he's like, no, you can write songs. He said, I want to hear, like, you've got a lot to say and you can hear melodies. So let's do this, and he'd grab his guitar and he would say, okay, where do you hear me going? And I would say, okay, do that 2 more times. All right. And here's lyrics to this.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we wrote a bunch of music together. I had the opportunity of playing in some amazing places in Hollywood and in Los Angeles. And obviously during that time, I also probably did a lot of drinking, and we definitely did a lot of drugs. Just like I said, there were different things around. Yeah. But it was at a young age. I look back at it and it's like, I wouldn't take any of it back. I'm grateful for the amount of survival, clearly, that I survived a lot of it. But I also look back at it, and this thing you're talking about, the skin breaking, I can think back to that period of time, the amount of growth, yes, a lot of heartache and a lot of even, probably not treating my body the best that it could. I also had some of the absolute most intensely creative, explosive times in my life. Yeah. Like and looking back at what I got to experience during that time, just insane. We played at the Old Town Pasadena, right? And turned out we were playing in this little pub, and there were people from the band Oingo Boingo there. And those guys wanted to play. Like, I got to get up and like jam with those guys. It's insane. It's insane.
At age as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just absolutely incredible. Got to meet lots of people, like got to see, you have these random stories of like running into celebrities, and people be like, oh, really? Like, did you ever meet any celebrities? I was a bartender at the Omni Hotel in downtown LA. So we were right across the street from Staples, like near Staples Center, near the performance. So I met people all the time, they'd be like, no way, how is this person? How was that? So this period of time, I just recently have started reflecting back on it as it was an insane level of freedom, maybe even dangerously amounts of freedom, right? But I'm looking at it now, 25 years later, because again, my friend who passed away, his name was Julian Martinez. He was my guitar player. He's the one I was talking about. That was like, hey, you got this, like you can write music. One of the most gifted musicians I've ever known in life, but someone who I believe, as you've talked about, probably held himself back unintentionally. This guy probably should have had 100 Grammy Awards and famous a million times over, but struggled like many of us do, right? We get in our own way about what we're capable of. And I feel like he was one of those people. He's so insanely talented, but he passed away on April 13th and it was unexpected. And, he was only in his very early 60s. So I've gotten to reflect on a lot of this, like here, as I got to go back to that same street where we would rehearse, Avenue 18, you could see downtown LA, and to be there now and like sober, and to be there and have these thoughts of those times, and to be able to hear the impact this person even still had on so many people. There were people there that were talking about just how he affected their entire musical journeys, and there's people who, I don't know, just an amazing thing for me to get to reflect back on. But yes, I got to do music at that same time. I think one of the strange facts I had talked about was almost making the girl band. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know. Amanda, did you know that?
What you said is amazing. That's just wow.
No.
So I was about 20, and at this time I'd get called out on auditions, and they're like, forming girl band. This is okay. Picture it. It's like 1999. So it's like, you've got probably Spice Girls over here, and you've got like all these. So people were trying to manufacture like bands, So my agent sent me on this, and I was all pumped up. I'm like, yes, here's my chance. Like, I'm finally gonna break through. And I go and I audition, and they're like, all right, so I'm singing some cheesy song, like, I don't know, and my heart breaks and you, whatever, one of those. I get through like 3 or 4 callbacks. I keep getting called back. I'm like, I'm gonna be in this band. So pumped. And then they get to the point where we're doing dance auditions. And I can dance, like I can move, but I'm not a dancer, like Britney, like like that.
Wasn't it? Well,
like Britney.
Yes. So when I went to that audition, I made it to literally, I was down to like 4 callbacks in, and they were down to the final selection, and I bombed the dance audition. Because I was thinking, I'm like, I'm good. What are they going to do? Are they really going to have us do that? And they're like, and then we twist and turn and then and I didn't make the band. However, I made it all that way. And then my dancing.
You went far. And if you had known about the dancing and had some practice, hey, we wouldn't even be talking to you right now.
Yeah. I'm glad. I'm
But
very glad.
You know what
Thanks for
else? I
doing.
might have made the girl band. I might have done a million 8 balls, and I might have kicked it out of this life way earlier than I should have. So good news. Woo! I didn't
You're
make
here.
the girl band.
It's all the way it's supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
100%. Yeah, Amanda, I didn't think you knew that story. Now you know.
No. Thank you. I'm so glad. I keep learning more and more about you, Ginny. I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
All's well that ends well. You've got this amazing life in Colorado. You're painting furniture. I mean, who wouldn't want that? What's a girl band?
That's right. What's a girl band? I do a lot of dance moves in the garage, so it's fine. It works out.
What the best
It's all
of
of
both worlds. And Amanda, there's this weird thing about the number 72 that seems to just follow you everywhere. What's that about?
Yeah, I was driving in high school. My license plate was R72. And I remember I was just driving around, and then, I was in my using days. So I probably, smoked a little reefer or whatever. And I was getting, deep and whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, 72 is also in my zip code. Oh my gosh, it's also in my grandmother's address. Oh my gosh, it's also my social security number. Oh my gosh, it just was like everywhere. And it still seems to be everywhere. Even when I left my corporate job in Manhattan, I worked after college for 6 years for a real estate and marketing and sales firm. And I left that to go back to social work school. And I began waitressing again. And the woman who was training me, her sign-in number was 72. Just like little things like that just constantly pop up for me. So there's something about that number 72. I'm not really sure. I do feel like it holds something else bigger. Maybe when I'm 72, something will happen, or who knows. But one of my grandmothers passed away in 1972. Just a lot around that number. It's almost creepy.
I was going to say to you, well, maybe you should check out 1972 and see what happened in that year. And then you said your grandmother even passed away.
Yep. And I'm sure there's many other things. 1972 was probably a very interesting year. So yeah, it's just crazy.
Listen, we could go on and on and
we
on.
Could.
But we're not
we
going.
Really could.
We could. I may end up making this a two-part. It might end up being a two-part podcast, but we'll see how it goes. Or we definitely would need to do this again another time, because the rate at which the world is changing, there's so many things we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
AI and being authentic and there's just so much that's going on. So I would love to have you guys back on again in the future. But in the meantime, can you tell us where we can find you? And also if you have any gifts, any freebies for the Living Inside Out crew.
Sure. If you visit my website, AmandaMcKoyFlanagan.com. So it's Amanda, and then McKoy is with a K, McKoy, and Flanagan. It's just Google it. I'm sure you'll find me, and I'm sure my name will be on Talks information. On there, you can put your email address into my website, and you can get your free guide, the 5 principles to be all in. So there's 5 little ideas and principles and stuff that could help you get started on your path to being all in with yourself. And then my Instagram is at Amanda McKoy Flanagan. Oh no, is that my landscapers?
I don't know. It is loud.
We don't mind loud.
I can mute.
We have no issues with them.
Okay, it's all good. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Amanda McKoy Flanagan. Thank you.
Great. And Ginny, are you on Instagram as well?
I am. You can find me at the Flippin' Phoenix. Well, my website is the Flippin' Phoenix Furniture Rehab.com. On Instagram, it's the Flippin' Phoenix. I'm trying to remember exactly what the handle is. I'm like, that's really bad. But on Facebook as well.
It's probably in the show notes. So
yes, Flippin' Phoenix Furniture Rehab.
And our podcast, guys, check out our podcast. I think you're gonna love it. If you like Talks material, I think you're gonna like what we have to say. That's at Soul Rising Podcast on Instagram.
Soul Rising, and it's SOL. So, but it links in the show note. But you guys, thank you so very much for being absolutely beautiful. I have enjoyed every moment chatting with you and just getting to know you better. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. It has been a huge honor, and we are so grateful to connect with you, and we cannot wait to connect with you again.
Yes, it's been so lovely, and to have this experience with you for our first podcast as guests. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have
Wonderful.
a wonderful rest of the day.
Okay,
You
you
too.
too.
All right,
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.